We're going to take a break today from Antarctica to talk about something I swore I thought I would never have to talk about again. Talk about snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. The situation in Venezuela was won. We defeated the efforts of DC to win the narrative in the media over and over and over again. Spent a whole year doing it. Not by myself, of course. There was Abby Martin, there was Gray Zone, there was Redfish, but today we're going to talk about this issue with Max Blumenthal. Now, for those of you who don't know who he is, he has been a warrior talking about the issues that happened down here in 2014, 15, explaining it. He's traveled to the region. The government of Venezuela has actually awarded him, I think he got a sword for his work, which is all fine. I have no problem with what Max Blumenthal did, but Max Blumenthal got arrested this last week. Why did he get arrested? Well, when he was attempting to deliver food to Code Pink, occupying the building in D.C., which I said at the time was a terrible strategy, some woman concocted this story about him hitting her or kicking her or knocking her down. And of course, because it's DC, they're going to believe her. So they charged him and arrested him. And of course, he was released on bond and all that, but now he's got to face these charges. What does this all stem from? It stems from this. And we're going to talk about this today. And I'm actually, at the end of the video, going to suggest one of the best YouTube channels out there that nobody knows about. It talks about how to deal with narcissism and narcissistic personality disorder. Now, I have a very personal story in my life that I'm not going to share where I had to deal with this, but basically, characteristics of those having an inflated idea of their own importance. Someone with narcissistic personality disorder, they simply lack the square footage in their soul for ego and emotion to comfortably coexist. They feel they trump all. Now, going hand in hand with this as a warrior, especially being a trained psychological operations warrior for the military, to win 100 victories in 100 battles is not the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. To subdue the enemy without fighting is the acme of skill. All of the big verbose threats of DC, we're going to send the military and we're going to do this and we're going to invade and all this, Venezuela could have reacted very badly to that. But they held their own in righteousness. And they stood firm, they stood calm, knowing they had the support of their people, and said, not going to happen. If you do, we have something waiting, but you're not going to do it. And lo and behold, here we are, end of 2019. Venezuela has won, DC has backed off. Hence that general is skillful in attack, whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skillful in defense, whose opponent does not know what to attack. DC was flabbergasted. They were confounded. They were just confused. They tried everything they could. They sent a senator down there to try to force aid in over the border. Didn't work. They even flew one into Caracas a couple of times to negotiate with Maduro over the release of a couple of different people that had been detained. And that didn't work. They tried sanctions. That didn't work. They've tried everything. It's a type of warfare that not a lot of people are familiar with. How to do subtle psychological operations warfare that doesn't involve narcissism. Now, I have no problem with Max. Max is a great guy. Max is a victim of narcissistic people like Code Pink, who decided they wanted to interject themselves into the argument, go occupy a building that Venezuela had abandoned. Let me say it again. The building had been abandoned. Because Venezuela knew. Pardon my voice. They knew trying to have a building occupied, any type of real discussion with DC on a normal, sane level was not going to happen. DC is the problem. DC is the problem. Anyone who says, I'm going to go to DC and I'm going to fix things, or I'm going to start a wave of revolution, it's going to change how we govern. Narcissism 101. Tulsi Gabbard's not going to do it. The current leader didn't do it. No one running in the last 20 years had any intention of doing it. You cannot do what DC does. You cannot have that amount of power and have it not end up being corrupt. Power corrupts. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. It won't work. I don't care who you are. I don't care what your plan is. Venezuela is just a great example of why DC has to go away. We have to rule ourselves. Again, I'm not saying that at some point in the future there might not be some type of a mechanism where we have some level of national governance, but right now it is a lost cause. DC, anybody in DC is a lost cause. I don't care what they say. If their idea is, oh, trust me to be the dictator, I will be a benevolent one and a good one, that alone should tell you that that person has an overinflated sense of self. This is what is so confusing to the average North American about why Venezuela is doing what they're doing. Imagine if this country had 10% of the population that for free and at their own expense was willing to arm themselves, organize themselves, and stand for the defense of the nation. That would be what, 30, 40 million people? We have a military, but they're heavily paid, all sorts of benefits, everything taken care of for them, handheld all the way through. Imagine trying to do that. Imagine having a standing militia in this country of 40 million people, willing to do so at their own expense. That's what Venezuela has had for a long time. They're a country of 30 million people. They have about a 3 to 5 million man at all times standing militia. If they actually really had to bring it forth, it would be closer to 10 million, which is almost a third of the population. Because they believe in the leadership. They overthrew their version of DC back in 98, 99. They had a two-party system. That they stood somebody up, ironically, from the military, and he took over, Chavez, and then he divested power. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on in my throat today, but he divested power from Caracas, and that divested power away from big oil. And that's what this is really all about. He said, nope, sorry, our natural resources in this country are not meant for the enrichment of international North American oil corporations. We'll allow you to make enough money to operate and to perhaps turn a small profit, but there is no way, under any circumstances, you are going to benefit more than the people of this country. That's what this boils down to. And over the years prior to Chavez, there had been all sorts of fail-safes put in by big oil, that if something like this were to happen, they could turn the screws. The importing of food was one of them. That's why in 14 and 15 you saw all the problems. They decided to, once they were kicked out, get their cronies in DC to do all of this work for them. They just didn't count on the resilience of the people of the country. And this is why, right now, Venezuela is dealing with China, dealing with Russia, dealing with Turkey. Because we forced it. They fly F-16s. Chavez gave free and low-cost heating oil to people in the northeast of this country, years ago, as a goodwill token. They were our allies, and we screwed them. And this is the greatest geopolitical miscalculation DC has ever done, and it is one of the best, if not the best, teaching moments ever created by our government about why the system in DC has to go away. Down below this video, there are t-shirts for sale. There have been for a long time. It says, devoted to these election night results, R 0%, D 0%. They are the problem. When America can wrap its head around that if it has a D at the end of its name, or an R at the end of its name, or it says, I'm going to go to Washington and I'm going to fix things, when America can realize people that say that are part of the problem, not the solution, then we have a chance of going forward. Until then, I don't see any hope. And I guess I'll just leave that there. Like, share, subscribe.